Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch, being joined by Bryan Murphy, Kendrick Johnson, and Devin Hasson. Gentlemen, it is Monday, and let's talk some high school girls basketball mid-district. We are right at the halfway point in district play for the majority of our districts, so we've now had a chance to see how all of our teams in one district look against everybody else in the district, so we have an idea as to what these districts look like now at the halfway point. So let's discuss, what does it all mean, and, what are we kind of expecting now heading into the second half of district play. We're going to we'll talk some 6A girls basketball today, and then we'll kick it over to 5A later on in the week on Thursday, and then we'll turn around and do the exact same exercise next week for boys basketball. We'll talk about our four 6A girls basketball districts today. We're just going to kind of bounce around. I want to start over in District 10-6A. Talk a little bit of Garland ISD and some Wiley, because we had last Friday something that's maybe about as rare as a shooting star, or getting or seeing a four-leaf clover, and that is a competitive game involving Sachse.
I know, right?
Sachse, who's what's the district winning streak at now? Is it 62?
62.
62.
But number 62 wasn't as easy as
no, it's not. This is they have amassed those previous 61, the majority of them in overwhelmingly dominant fashion. First off, before we get to what happened on Friday with Sachse, I just want to give a quick rundown of what the standings are right now at the halfway point. So Sachse, as we've alluded to, yes, they are in first place as is usual, and typically with a 0 in the loss column. They're 7-0 at the halfway point. Lakeview Centennial is 6-1. Wiley is 5-2. Rowlett in fourth place at 4-3. So those are your four playoff teams right now. One game back of Rowlett though is Garland at 3-4, and then Naaman Forest is in sixth place with 2-5. North Garland at 1-6 and seventh, and then South Garland in eighth place at 0-7. So yes, Sachse still undefeated, but they had to withstand a very atypical performance on Friday in just a 46-42 victory over rival Rowlett. So whether it is just the rivalry stakes that can come out between those two schools on occasion, just a completely different approach from Rowlett as far as kind of grinding the game down and limiting the number of possessions that Sachse was able to have. Clearly, they put themselves in position to potentially score a monumental upset. Devin, what was just your takeaway from this game as Sachse withstood its toughest test in district so far?
Well, part of it is the rivalry. I mean, these teams get up, and every team in every sport, they're pointing at the two head-to-head matchups as the biggest district games of the year. And this is not, like you say, it doesn't happen often, but this is the fifth time during that 62-game streak that they have had a single-digit game. So while it's not a common occurrence, but yeah, Rowlett, to its credit, it's played Sachse tough for 2.5 quarters during this streak. They just haven't been able to sustain it for 4, and they really were able to do that for most of the night on Friday. I mean, this was a 4-point game at the half, and then it went back and forth in the second half. Sachse was always able to kind of keep it up at arm's length, though. Rowlett just wasn't able to ever get that final push to either draw even or even go ahead. So yeah, I mean, that's, even with the loss, that's a big confidence booster for Rowlett, but you also got to just continue to give credit to Sachse.
For sure.
I mean, that's just, their leadership, even after Jayla Brooks went down, which was such a huge blow, just because you lose your 3-year, starting point guard. They have Adele Tack, who's a 4-year varsity, she's going to TCU. Tia Harvey is a 4-year varsity player. So they have the experience and the leadership to fall back on. And that's one of the reasons that winning streak has been going on as long as it has, is because they've always had, a solid senior class to kind of guide the way. So, Sachse is still, maybe it shows they're a little bit more vulnerable. Maybe they just didn't play as well as they're capable of. And again, credit to Rowlett for coming with their A effort. But it's still Sachse, the team. I mean, this is a perfectly tiered district. You just read them down.
Yeah.
I mean,
no ties.
But in terms of every team is separated by one game, which basically tells you there hasn't been an upset. I mean, they are basically in the same order that I would have picked them before the season started.
Okay.
So no upsets so far. It's going to come down to those top 4 teams. Sachse was really able to handle Lakeview, the 36-19 in the first meeting. I was
hoping that might be the game where a team maybe makes you sweat it out a little bit.
Well, and again, when they played in the Coppell tournament, this was a 46-43 Sachse win. Yeah. So it's Lakeview show, and they got that front line with 3 6-foot athletic players. To give Sachse some problems. And like I say, I fully expect the rematch to be much closer, much more along the same lines as it was in the Coppell tournament. Wiley's they fly under the radar because they're the only non-GISD team. But they put themselves in position at 5-2, and that was expected. Mm-hmm. And Rowlett, you got to make sure you don't slip up and open that door for Garland. But I think Rowlett is a team that if these top four is going to shuffle from their current order, Rowlett's a team that can do it. Nevaeh Zavala, Maddie Rodriguez, Reagan Warren, these are all 3 very good players. And they only lost to Wiley by 1 in the first meeting, and then certainly showed, on Friday that they can hang and contend with, compete against any team in this district. So, if there's going to be a team that I guess, changes the pecking order, so to speak, I think it's Rowlett and their potential to move up.
And they do already have a 24-point victory under their belt over Garland, who's 1 spot behind them in the standings. So you would think that, okay, they should at least be able to, be free and clear. Well, assuring themselves a top 4 spot.
And Rowlett's been able to avoid that this year. There have been a couple times in recent years where they have a head scratcher against a team that they beat by 25-30 the first time, and then they are able to squeak out, a 2 or 3 point win in the second game. So, they've done a good job of maintaining their intensity week in, week out, game in, game out. So I don't expect them to slip up. But like I say, when you only have a 1-game cushion, you don't want to leave anything chance.
Yeah. So you've got, so again, does it look like, though, you feel like these are your 4 playoff teams, and that order's probably, I don't know, could the order change or whatnot, or is there one of those teams?
Yeah, like I say, if it's going to change, I think it's Rowlett.
Okay.
They play Wiley, tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. And so, again, that was a 1-point Wiley win the first time. So I think that Rowlett, certainly coming off of Friday, if they play the way they did against Sachse, they can beat Wiley. Mm-hmm. And I think Rowlett, they don't match up real well with Lakeview, but, strange things have happened. So I think if that top 4 is going to change, it's going to be Rowlett moving up the ranks 1 or 2 notches.
Let's see. And then you've got a district like over, and we can talk a little bit of 9-6A. Bryan, Kendrick, give you guys a chance to chime in. So at the midpoint now, let's run down the District 9-6A standings. You have Allen in first place at 6-0, Plano Senior in second place at 5-1, McKinney with a 4-2 record in third place, Plano East even at 3-3. They are in fourth. So those are your 4 playoff teams currently. Then you have Prosper, 1 game back of East, 2-4, Plano West in sixth at 1-5, and then McKinney Boyd in seventh at 0-6. So much like 10-6A, no ties. But nevertheless, so do we feel like these are like that is a pretty? Is this district kind of like working out the way that you guys anticipated it so far through 1 half?
Yeah, you have a McKinney team that's got a favorable schedule. They have everybody at home except for Plano Senior and Plano East in the second half of the season. They're 4-2.
Well, those are 2 pretty big games, though, as far as potential playoff seeding and whatnot.
But they actually play pretty good on the road to me. But it's like I've just got Allen, but nobody thought Prosper was going to be this match, so I guess it's not like we thought it was going to be.
I wouldn't say they're bad. I mean, all their losses are within 10 points. They're playing close games. They're the 5 seed right now. They're 2-4.
They're not making the playoffs.
They're going to have to beat McKinney and Plano East if they want, and come around the second half of district play if they're going to make the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, they're even playing Allen tight. That was a less than a 10-point game. When they played, was it last week?
Yeah.
It's not like they're getting blown out. It's not like Jordan Oliver's gone, so they took a bit of a step down. They still have players.
I'm not saying that,
but it's just they're in one of, if not the toughest. Yeah. They don't have a signature win, and like I said, you can kind of chalk up Plano and Allen as losses when they play in the second half district, but they're going to have to beat McKinney and Plano East. And upsetting one of those top two teams wouldn't hurt also, but they're gonna have to take care of a lot of business, if they want to make the playoffs.
And I think they get McKinney and East this week.
Yes.
So
yes. So we'll find out.
Prosper season is essentially on the line this week. You can make a
pretty
case.
Much, yeah.
I'm curious to see how that rematch against East goes, just after seeing the first one in person, and how again, just despite East doing everything it could to take Maddie clear out of the ball game, and still Chandler Browning was shooting the ball hot enough to keep Prosper within striking distance the whole way until, like the last couple minutes. East, East got like a 2-possession lead, and then they were able to pull away a little bit from the free throw line. But Prosper was game. It did not, because like we mentioned, earlier. I mean, obviously the big storyline was, okay, what does life after Jordan Oliver look like? But you also kind of forget how much else they lost in addition to her, not having Scout Huffman, who was their best interior player last season. She's out with an injury. They graduated their point guard from last season, Madison Willis-Rosa. Yeah. Adley Morrell, who was one of their best reserves, played some really, really key defensive minutes
as a freshman.
Guarding some of the best players in the district, and she's now doing her thing on the soccer pitch. So it really is a brand new team from last season, and not just not having Oliver, but again, they've still got Trey Rochelle's one of the best coaches in the district, and they've just been able to kind of scheme their way into being able to hang tough with these upper echelon teams. Now, ultimately, again, got to get over the hump against one of them, and like we said, it sounds like, at least based on the standings, that if they are going to make any headway, that it's got to be this week.
Yeah, and a lot's happened since then. They played East and McKinney before the holidays, and they played holiday tournaments. They beat Braswell in those holiday tournaments, and they're top 10 in 5A. This is a Prosper team that can play, and they have a lot to prove. These next 2-3 games.
So if you're going to MGM, would you put money on them games to play?
Well, I don't bet on high school sports, but man, I don't know. It's a tall task. I mean, they fell way too far behind, 2-4, but they're only one game back. So I mean, if you beat McKinney,
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I'm trying to talk yourself.
I know. I'm like, man, it's not likely, but I'm like, oh, come on, I picked them to make the playoffs. I'm not trying to give anyone bulletin board material, but no, I don't think so.
Hey, listen to us, man.
I'm curious to see what, again, because they are, at least, again, the team that is closest to them, at least, is Plano East. And that's a team that we've been pretty consistent in saying that we kind of expect them to get better as district goes along, just because it's the age-old case of a really, really young team that's had some really, really, close moments of showing promise of being one of the better teams in this district. And then, they have some close losses to McKinney and Allen, and whatnot, an Allen team that they were in position to beat, until 20 seconds left in the ball game. So again, East has shown a ton of promise, but they've taken the expected lumps of a young team. So it's just kind of going off the assumption that, okay, they're going to kind of like Allen was last year, where it starts to kind of round together over the second half of district. But, we'll see at the end of the day. I mean, those losses to the one to McKinney was a little eye-opening. I kind of did think that at least, and granted, I guess they played earlier on in tournament season. I think that was just a 3-point win for Plano East back then. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised if McKinney wins by 5 on its home floor. It's just kind of matchup that you could very well see East, being able to return the favor when they rematch at East later on. But nevertheless, though, East has been the promise is there. It's just it's kind of weird because we live in this age of all these these real perimeter centric offenses. Everybody running their 5 outs or whatnot. And East is a kind of a It's kind of a throwback because they do funnel a lot of their offense through their 2 post players, Taylor Hagan and Idara Udo, and it's kind of a nice change of pace to see kind of a 2 post offense in today's age of basketball. But that's the thing, though, is that teams have kind of loaded up on trying to slow those 2 down, and it's kind of thrown a bit of a stick in the spoke of
the girls for Plano East. You can definitely tell they're going to be special
for sure.
So I catch them now, because you ain't going to be able to do nothing with them going forward.
Because they do such a good job of kind of grinding these teams down into really just a low-scoring, brutal game. They did it against Prosper, they did it against Allen, they did it against Plano. So the elite teams in the district are not immune to it. East they suck you in, but at the same time, I think there's kind of a ceiling to what that, like against McKinney. McKinney scores 50. I don't think East is able to overcome a team scoring more than 45 points or so against them.
But I think we'll see how they make adjustments, because people are they know what people want to do to them, so we haven't seen their counter. But somebody like Taylor Hagan, she's a very quality player, future star, and then the other girl, I forget her name.
Idara Udo, the other freshman, And it's more than just, their backcourt is, with Kayla Cooper, Tiana Amos, Ada Anamekwe, who's one of the best defensive players in the entire district.
They get in you. They the old school people say, they get in your shirt.
Oh, yeah. They'll grind on you for sure. It's just they've had, they've played teams like Allen and Plano really, really tough for a half or so, and then and then it's been a little bit tougher down the stretch. I picked Plano to win the district, so so they've got a game on Tuesday against Allen, which will basically, that's either going to, if they have a chance of winning the district, or if they're going to fall back, because Allen so far as despite losing a McDonald's All-American and Nia Green, that team. We talk about,
but they got the military transfer to Zoe was a game changer. You got the best player over opponent coming to your program, it's only going to help out.
It does,
and she's delivered.
It definitely does. I mean, you're not going to have a player that really gets you, 25 a night like Nia Green did. But as far as getting steady play out of the backcourt, from Zoe Jackson, she's been solid. I think either Zoe or Tyler Jackson, their other guard, are probably your maybe the two front runners right now for the district MVP.
They're real deals,
and they've got great size down low with Mackenzie Worm,
6'3", 6'2".
Zoe McCrary, who missed the first part of district, recently came back, and she was instrumental in that game against Plano East. Their defense is just absolutely grinding. Just through the first half, they've only had one team clear 40 points against them, and that was Prosper, who we just mentioned. Otherwise, they're allowing just 35.3 points in district play.
Can't lose if they're scoring.
And that game against Plano on Tuesday has been one that just watching that first matchup and how that's really the only time a team has made Plano look kind of human in the wake of losing Jordan Merritt and whatnot. I mean, Plano just could not buy a bucket inside. I forget the number that Coach Belcher told me, after the fact, but when they went back and watched the tape, it was something around like 30 missed shots inside. So again, maybe a performance that you expect to maybe levels out a bit in the rematch, but by that same accord, Allen didn't have Zoe McCrary in that matchup, and they still were able to win by double digits and hold Plano in check inside. So that might just negate any improvements that Plano makes in that respect. But so Allen's been.
So Allen's still the top dog. It's not like it was last year.
Maybe they and the thing is,
I can't get them,
and they're still not state ranked. They have, Plano's still hanging around at like number 11 or number 12 in the state, and Allen, despite having run the table so far.
That's crazy because they started off at number 3.
They did, oh yeah. But they did have a really, really tough non-district, and they took some losses to the DeSotos and the Duncanvilles and the Arlington Martins of the world and whatnot. But no, they're definitely playing a much more inspired brand of basketball of late. With Plano, we talked about them a lot last week as far as being one of the true surprises, and that they could lose a potential McDonald's All-American in Jordan Merritt and still be able to maintain their status as one of the elite teams in this district.
They rally off of that, like, people don't think we can do this. Mm-hmm. Watch this.
And you mentioned just kind of the impact that Zoe Jackson's had, though, as far as moving from
that was a game changer to the whole district.
The best player from a district opponent. And you're seeing the kind of the same thing as far as what's helped steady that tide is that Maya Brandon, who transferred over from Plano West, and she and Michaela Edens have really done a good job stabilizing things. It's kind of a nice 1-2 scoring punch. Maggie Robbins, just reliable as always, just an absolute pit bull on defense. And then they've got so many just young and promising players.
Yeah, they got a bunch of people that know their role, that do it, but they play winning basketball, and that's hard to find in high school. Especially everybody want to be the star.
Sinea Sattler is one of their star freshmen. Alyssa Penley. They've got some. It's a team that's really kind of built not just for this season, but for these next couple. And we'll see. I mean, again, they've got a chance to draw even on Tuesday, and if they lose that game, though, then that's pretty much kisses goodbye any chance you have of winning a district title, because not only would that put you 2 games back of Allen in the standings, but also gives Allen the head-to-head. So it's essentially a 3-game lead. And Allen's not losing 3 games in district. Allen, Plano, they've looked the part. I'm curious to see what McKinney does in that rematch against Allen, because they did not have Aaron Fry for that one.
Made a big deal because the game got put away when all of a sudden they Zoe Jackson told me at the game, we called for a press, we wanted to change things up. The game went from a 4-point lead to a 14-point lead. That was the game because they started pressing. Because they have Fry does everything for McKinney, but she's their primary ball handler, so they had no ball handlers. So that ball was going here and here and here.
So of our top 4 right now, of Allen 1, Plano 2, McKinney 3, East 4, do we think that's going to be the case in a few weeks? Do we see anybody potentially leapfrogging another? Or?
Unlike Murphy, I got confidence in the youngsters from Plano East.
Unlike me. I'm gonna get a text from Trey Rochelle after he sees this. He's like, y'all don't believe in me? No, it's not that I don't believe in y'all. It's just this district is really, really good.
For sure.
And I think the youngsters from Plano are good enough to Plano East to hold on to that spot. But you can see they get better each game.
Yeah.
I could see East and McKinney tying for 3rd, and then they do whatever to figure that out. I think Allen's going to. I think just getting McCray back, that'll be enough for. Even though I picked Plano at the start of the season, watching the struggles that Plano had scoring inside, and then you add Zoe McCray to that mix. I kind of think Allen's gonna wrap this thing up tomorrow night. All right. So that's a look at District 9-6A right now as far as kind of how things are shaking out there. And then over in District 6-6A, talk a little bit of this one. one because as far as district title races, this is the most exciting one because you have a three-way tie for first place at the midpoint, and that is between Flower Mound, Lewisville, and Irving MacArthur at 6-1. Then you have Hebron in fourth place at 4-3, Coppell in fifth place at 3-4, Marcus 2-5, they are in sixth, and then Nimitz is seventh at 1-6, Irving High 0-7 in eighth place. And wouldn't you know it, because you have those top three teams, and the commonality as far as one of the underlying subplots of this district is that size matters. And you look at those three teams, Flower Mound, Lewisville, and MacArthur, and it's no coincidence they have the three best front courts in this district. Whether it is Layla Lawrence over at Lewisville, the 1-2 punch of Madison Cox and Sarah Edgerton over at Flower Mound, and then of course Hannah Gusters, the 5-star prospect committed to Baylor over at MacArthur. They're 6-1, and they've all beat up on each other. Flower Mound beat Lewisville beat MacArthur, and MacArthur beat Flower Mound.
So everybody taking L's.
The big thing, though, going forward, though, as far as which team might be positioned best to make to get some separation from that pack, is probably MacArthur, because they just had to keep their head above water with Sarah Andrews, the other 5-star recruit that they have, who's also committed to Baylor, arguably the top overall player in the state, a potential McDonald's All-American. She had suffered an ACL strain in early December that put her out for, the timetable was 4 to 6 weeks. She was targeting a return in mid-January. Well, if you check the calendar, it is January 20th. It is, classify that as mid-January. She was back on Friday in that game against Flower Mound, and wouldn't you know, that's the game that they upset the apple cart at the top of the district, and they pick up a 57-54 overtime win. And yeah, we got that three-way tie. So yes, Andrews, she scored 11 points in her return against the Lady Jaguars. You would only expect as time goes on, she's going to get more and more comfortable as she gets her sea legs back underneath her. And then we can finally see what this MacArthur team can do. This is one of the most compelling teams coming into the season, just because you have, again, two of the absolute best players in the country, in Sarah Andrews and Hannah Gusters, on the same team. Gusters had to sit out last season due to the transfer rules and whatnot. And this is a team that you'd fancy being among that, kind of in that same caste as the DeSotos and the Duncanvilles over in Region 1, with that kind of top shelf star power. And now we can finally get to see what it all means. That was the first game all season they've played together. It was Friday against Flower Mound, because Gusters was not eligible to play until December 12th, and then obviously Andrews had that injury. So yes, I think that's the team that is kind of best positioned to get a little bit of separation. And again, it's not like there's going to be any awkward feeling out process and okay, how do these two players mesh? How do they play together?
Everybody knows everybody.
Well, also they play AU ball together with pro skills, so it's not so they've got plenty of on-court chemistry and whatnot. So it's just kind of seeing now how the role players fall in line behind those two. But yeah, I've been fascinated to see what this Gusters-Andrews pairing could do, and we'll get that chance now finally. Let's see, for Flower Mound and Lewisville, we're going to figure out what that rivalry means on Tuesday, because they open up the second half of district play against each other. Flower Mound took a 9-point victory, I want to say it was, in the first round. Lewisville has been impressive ever since, including that victory over MacArthur. And they were able to put together a really, really sound defensive performance against Hebron, which really helped kind of establish them now as perhaps looking at a top 3 seed in this district. It hasn't just been Layla Lawrence who's been their rock inside, one of the top post players in the district, but then kind of head coach Sally Alsbrook talked about just kind of the depth they've then got elsewhere, and kind of spreading the wealth and not just relying on that one player. Getting players like Sydney Savage, KK Blair, Ducey Reed going as well, and how much that's kind of leveled things out for Lewisville. And they come into this with the longest winning streak in the district now that Flower Mound's taken a loss. Flower Mound, though, is still in good position as well, even though they took a close loss to MacArthur, an overtime decision at MacArthur, so nothing to hang your head over. Madison Cox held up well, in her first crack at Hannah Guster. She scored 17 points, led all scorers. Edmondson had 12, so their front court did work, despite the tall order of the MacArthur matchup, but again, though, you'd expect that MacArthur's probably going to be a bit more of established. When they see that rematch.
Experience makes a big deal going down the stretch of these games.
But nevertheless, the Flower Mound, just with their size and just the steadiness of that backcourt, Mackenzie Schott and Kayla Wallace, they've shown enough to where I think they're, again, if they already have the head-to-head on Lewisville, and if they can get that win on Tuesday, that would lock up the tiebreaker for sure. So, in that respect, that almost assures you a top 2 seed if you're Flower Mound.
Do you think one of these teams besides
MacArthur
can make a run?
The thing is,
teams that beating up each other.
Maybe out of the first round, but then that's when you're running into, depending on where you're seated, because you're probably going to be seeing the DeSotos and the Duncanvilles in the second round, given the proximity of those districts. So, probably not. If you're drawing either of those two, those just looks like those are the two best teams in the state right now. And yeah, listen, the further you are from playing one of those two, the better, because it feels like those two teams are on a collision course for either the third round or the fifth round. I'm not sure how it would line up in the brackets, but MacArthur's the team that has the best shot for sure. Hebron's in fourth place. They're at 4-3. Having seen them against Coppell, who's one game back in fifth place, didn't really see much there to suggest that a rematch would go much different. Hebron's they've got so many weapons. It's the reason why they're hanging back of those top three is just because it's a team of essentially of guards and wings. They don't have that imposing post presence like those other three do, and you've kind of seen that in these matchups against like Flower Mound and Lewisville, where the struggles on the glass and just stopping that inside scoring, that's when it kind of comes back to bite you. But they do have so many capable players who are just letting it up from the outside, be it Sierra Dixon, Cami McKinney, Cortland Loudermill, who in that game against Flower Mound just went off. She had 30 points or something like that, just could not miss from three. It does stink that they're without one of their best players for the season in Deja Melton, who's just joins that list of other players in the area whose season was just taken away by a damn ACL injury. But nevertheless, so it's left Hebron, though they're still one of the better teams in this district, and it's assured them most likely the 4 seed. Now again, who knows what that means come playoff time when you're having to play the district champion. I would assume that's probably Denton Geyer over in District 5 6A. But nevertheless, though, Hebron's, and they've shown some resistance against those upper echelon teams. Really, it was only Lewisville that they had a tough time against. They lost to MacArthur by 2. They lost to Flower Mound by 4. So they've been on the doorstep, just haven't been able to get over the hump and get that elusive win over those top 3 teams. So who knows? Maybe they score one in the second half and upset the pecking order a little bit. But that's your top 4, and I kind of think that's how we're going to wind up. If I had to guess right now, I think we're probably looking at MacArthur 1, Flower Mound 2, Lewisville 3, and Hebron 4 would be my mid-season projection for how that district's going to pan out. But yes, the timing couldn't be any better for MacArthur right now to get Sarah Andrews back, and finally, it's like their season began on Friday essentially. So we'll see again.
We'll make American. Hey, we're gonna be good.
We'll see what it all means going forward though. So that's just a look at what's happening out in District 6A, and we can close things out now with a look over out Mesquite ways at 11-6A, and we had the top of the district rocked a little bit on Friday. We have now a tie for first place between Horn and Tyler Lee at 5-1, Rockwall at 4-2 in third place, Rockwall Heath in fourth at 3-3, and then you have a tie for fifth between North Mesquite and Longview at 2-4, and then Mesquite High bringing up the rear at 0-6 in seventh place. Devin, obviously the big talking point was what happened on Friday in the first matchup between Horn and Tyler Lee. A tough one for the Lady Jaguars as they took their first district loss. So what does that result mean now as far as kind of how this the upper echelon in this district shakes out?
Well, there was a top 3 coming into I think, and really they all beat each other. Rockwall beat Lee. I mean, they actually had a rally the second half to do that. Horn beat Rockwall, and then Lee beat Horn on Friday. But Horn, they've won 4 straight, or at least a share of 4 straight district titles. But they always have that one game that just kind of comes out of nowhere, and that may have been Friday. Last year, for instance, they lost to Longview by 15, and you just kind of looked at the coach.
Was it at Longview? Was it one of those having to travel?
It was, but
25 hours.
Yeah, it was at Longview, which makes a difference. But then they turn around and beat them by 25 in the rematch, which is probably more indicative of the true talent level gap between the teams. But but Tyler Lee, they put together. I mean, they're 20-6. I mean, that's not an upset per se, but. I still think Horn's the team to beat going down the stretch. I think Jasmine Shavers is probably your district MVP just because she's the best. I know she's the best offensive player. Talia Washington's a 4-year starter, 6'1", can do a little bit of everything. I just think their depth with Benzia Jackson and Caitlin Cobb and Danielle Robinson, they just got so many different players that can step up on a given night. Tyler Lee is kind of, Aaliyah Morgan and Alyssa Thorne have kind of been their two go-to players for the last 3 years, and they're seniors now. Probably the best 1-2 punch in the district, but not quite the depth that Horn has. Rockwall, they lost Emma Stelzer, another ACL casualty, and so that was in December. So there was a transition period where they tried to get acclimated to life without her, but they still have a pair of seniors in Mickey Witcher and Celia Strait, and they have some young players. Nia Santiago, Caitlin Jordan are freshmen who have become regular contributors. So you mentioned the youth. When you have that much youth, there's so much upside as these freshmen and sophomores continue to grow during the course of the season. So I think it's going to come down to the head-to-head matchups. I would give Horn the edge, slight edge over Rockwall and Lee, who I think are about on even terms. But again, it's Horn. Friday's game, it may prove to be a better indicator, but to me, I think that was their one head scratcher of the year. Fourth place, it's a 3-team battle, but Rockwall Heath, they were 0-12 last year. And so they were not projected to be in the playoff hunt, let alone in fourth place. But they had Logan McNeil, who I saw very impressive as a freshman. She missed all last year with an injury. She came back this year, and that's been a big boost. They're another team that has a lot of freshmen and sophomores that played last year and again this year. So it's taken them time to develop. Plus, at 3-3, they have the 2 head-to-head wins over North Mesquite and Longview. So that's just a leg up in the tiebreaker should it come down to that. I still like North Mesquite's chances. They played well. Rockwall Heath kind of got away from them late on Friday, but North Mesquite has played the top teams tougher than they have in recent years. Again, I've talked about Kayla Pope. I just think she's one of the best players in the district. And so I think it's going to come down to the final day of the regular season when North Mesquite and Rockwall Heath rematch. I think it's likely going to be a situation where North Mesquite is going to have to beat Rockwall Heath to pull into a tie, and that's going to send them into a playoff play-in seeding or a fourth place game.
I had a quick question about Tyler Lee. So how similar is this Tyler Lee team from what they had last season?
It's very similar. Aaliyah Morgan and Alyssa Thorne were their 2 best players last year, and they're their 2 best players again. They got a little bit of size, and they prefer to slow it down and play in the 30s.
Because that was the team that Allen drew in the second round in their run to the state tournament, and that was probably the team that, at least as far as just the defensive effort, made Allen look more human than anybody, and that was including against Prosper and Pflugerville Hendrickson. I thought it was Lee that did the best job defensively against them of anybody. It wasn't until Nia Green just went nuts in the fourth quarter they finally got a little separation. But that Tyler Lee team, I was really, really impressed with what I saw from them. Yeah, I think they have some good athletes. Again, they did graduate a couple of key players off that team. Their 2 best are back. But again, that is their style and how they're successful. Is they don't let the score get up there. It's in the 30s and low 40s is when they're at their best. Which you're thinking the Horn still might be able to return the favor when they come to Mesquite. I do. I just like I say, Horn, their overall firepower, and again, having who I believe is the best player in the district puts them over the top. Okay. Yeah, and there you go. That is a look at our four 6A girls basketball districts. How we're feeling at the midpoint as we embark on the second half of district play. Begins on Tuesday. You already got some big games that'll shake up the pecking order, whether it's Plano and Allen, Flower Mound and Lewisville, all sorts of fun stuff on the horizon. So, and that'll do it for this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. Gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for tagging along. Folks, we'll be back on Thursday to do the same exercise on the 5A side, talk a little 5A girls basketball, plus a little bit of private school action as well. Mix that in too. In the meantime, folks, you enjoy your week, and we will talk to you all later.